Hey, I'm Lurpus. I played Counter-Strike for a living for 8 years. I've been on the desk for some of the biggest events for 5 years. I know nothing about Counter-Strike, but then again, neither does Thorin. Welcome to his YouTube channel.
Right, this is going to be another episode of Strat Book, and for this one, our guest is actually a little bit interesting, because as you might have noticed, apEX, if you've seen any past episodes of the show, all the guests on it are coaches or in-game leaders, which obviously is your role now. You are an in-game leader, but people do not think of apEX as an in-game leader. In fact, I even obviously made a tweet where, I can't remember if it was something along those lines, or if it was on this show even, where I said, even though your team at certain points in time was ranked number one, we're winning the tournaments, everyone's celebrating, the success of last year, almost no one seems to ever bring you up as an in-game leader, though. It's always sort of like, right, ZywOo's amazing, or wow, RPK is still relevant, or fucking Xstars, what do the coaches have to? Wow, the Vitality org. We never seem to hear about apEX, the in-game leader. Does that fuck with you at all?
Not really. I mean, the most important is what my teammate thinks, and I guess they think pretty well about me, so it's all right.
Do you think you have been undersold? Like, basically, I guess the big problem is no one really knows what you do, right? It's the online period. We don't know if the coach talks most of the time. We don't know, like, do you run simple stuff and then, the players make decisions? Are you coming up with really hardcore strats? Because people might not know this, and maybe we'll get into it as the episode goes on. But actually, when apEX back in the day was in the Titan lineup that had Kenny S and Maniac, the one where Kaylee got banned, actually, towards the end of that lineup, he was, like, doing secondary calling, and even in G2, he very briefly did it. It was just on Mirage, like, a couple of years ago. So it's not like you've never had any attempts to doing that, but people don't associate it with your style of player.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time that I've been second color in my whole career. I always had a lot of love with the tactical place. So yeah, obviously it's been a normal step for me. Maybe a bit late in my career, but I feel like we needed maybe an in-game leader a bit before. But yeah, that's life, and life goes on, and we keep going.
What do you think is the biggest difference? Just again, because obviously we aren't in the team, so we have to guess at these things. What do you think the big difference between the Alex Vitality and the apEX Vitalities in terms of in-game leaders?
Well, I mean, it would be a bit different for my POV, because I think with Alex there were like a before shocks and an after shocks. When shocks joined it was really different for my POV. From the Alex period, I would say that he was setuping ZywOo in the best condition ever, like for real. It was I don't think he could have done better in that sense. When we had NBK, I felt like I was also put in the great condition. I was doing like even better than decent stats, and I was putting in good condition as well. But then when we had Shocks, it was really different, because Shocks and me are like not soldiers, I would say, as players. So I felt like it was maybe hard for him to set up both of us. And yeah, he kind of gave up, I felt like, with the time we had. And yeah, for my POV, I think for my side, it's more, I'm thinking about all my players. I felt like everyone in the team stepped up individually with my style of calling. Contrary to Alex, we were more, even if ZywOo is still the same, we were more like ZywOolity before than Vitality.
Sure.
I feel it's more like that. And yeah, I mean, I've been trying to listen more to everyone, to what they think, and trying to mix everything with that and create a great chemistry, a great atmosphere between the team.
Sure. Right, there's obviously a lot we could do with this sort of gear, because he's been in so many great teams, played with some great in-game leaders, which is rare for in-game leaders to be able to talk about that. He's doing it himself now. Where do you want to go on this, mate? What's most interesting to you? Maybe about Vitality?
I wanted to ask actually about his in-game leading, how much he actually has learned from Existence. Like, I know that you've played with him like in Titan and in G2, I think?
No,
you were not in that G2 lineup. But did you actually learn a lot from him, and how much impact, I want to ask, has Shocks for your team right now, calling wise?
Well, yeah, I will talk about everything I heard. Also, Thorin talked about like Xstars, and something we're trying, I can tell you, and if you could hear the record, it will be nice, because we're trying to do a LAN mode. When I say LAN mode, we're trying to not let Xstar talk at all. He's talking a little bit sometimes, it's true, but not that much at all. We're trying to be in a LAN environment, and I feel like it's because what we're doing every day in this COVID period is just to train for LANs when they come back, because that's what we play for and that's what we're doing. I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I learned a lot from Existence because it was too long ago. So even if I have a good memory, I don't remember exactly what he did, etc. The only thing I remember, and I'm kind of the same, is he was a really big walker. He was doing a lot of work for his teammates. He was really he was kind of listening and sometimes not listening enough. But yeah, he was a great captain, obviously. The best captain I have had personally as a human. He tried to talk to you all the time, to be a great guy, etc., etc. So yeah, I think I didn't. What I tried when I went in Game is not being like the others, like the bad things they had. For example, Existence was kind of, how can I say? He was staying maybe in the old days in his head and didn't try to reinvent himself. I felt like for Happy, he was not, maybe he wasn't listening others and he wasn't working enough. That's not something new.
Sure.
Alex also, when in his bad period, didn't listen to us, and I know that it was really hard for me in certain period that I wanted to do something else, and yeah, he wasn't listening much. So yeah, I'm trying at least to do a mix of that. I'm not trying to be I'm trying to be a good guy for my teammates, and maybe sometimes do the hard work outside and in the server, and yeah, kind of. And also something not really crazy, but something I learned also as being in Tree Fragger. Sometimes I was putting in really bad situations. Like sometimes a bit with shocks or even with Happy, it was really hard to frag. Sometimes when you're like mid, and something I try to not doing with young people like Misuta, for example, is just throwing good nades for him, like being a good support for my entry fraggers, because obviously I remember the rain days. That for me the best entry fragger we ever had, and he was setuping in the best condition with Carrigan in that sense, and I felt like it's. Well, if your entry fragger does the work, like the star player has nothing to do. So that's what I felt, and that's what I'm trying to do most of the time.
Makes a lot of sense if you just think of where those two players played. Like these aren't players who were the entry players. Like Shocks obviously generally would prefer not to do it, especially if he has a lot to say. And then Happy was one of the most famous lurkers. So it's always the reason why I've always said if you're going to be a player like them and be an in-game leader, you better have amazing communication in your team, because you aren't there with the entry pack. Like you don't know what those guys are doing. You're just trusting that you see the dots on your radar and it's going the way you hope it. It's like there's a reason why most of the Danish IGLs, they're the entries as well. You know, it just makes it easy in that sense. So I think some of those guys actually just misunderstood how complicated it would be if you're not with the rest of the team.
Yeah, I mean, for me, a successful in-game leader is in the attack. It cannot be a lurker. I mean, BlameF, for example, is such a great in-game leader. Is a great player, but for me, in the long term, it can't work. It can't work being on the other side of the map. That's what I think, actually. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm good, but this lurker side, that's not my philosophy, at least.
No, what I can give to that point is, for example, if you're a caller like BlameF, like he says, like the lurker position and trying to make solo plays more, it's hard because you have a different flow of the game than someone, like you have a different view of the game than someone who is actually in the action, and it's very hard for him to adjust mid-round callings. Exactly. So what their game is probably more based on is set rounds that they practice before the match, or do like anti-strats to the enemies, and they have like rounds where they call, okay, we will do, I don't know, default A, default B, default C, default D, and they just play these rounds, and then they play with the flow that they had in practice. So I can imagine that someone else is doing a lot more mid-round calling in their team than BlameF does, because you cannot have the vision unless, as you say, Duncan, the team has like the most insane communication ever, which I doubt since it's an international team. I don't think that you can have this fucking insane communication, actually.
I agree.
Sure. I also think actually you make a good point there as well, apEX, which is basically if people also don't understand like the perspective of the entry fragger, and also I'll throw in because people who played that role, which shouldn't really be like a hard role, it's more like a tendency, but people like you, obviously famously for many years, that was just your job. I also think because that's a job where I describe it as a bit like the jungler in League of Legends, the job of that role almost is to be the one who eats shit all the time to make the other players better. So as a result, you're always going to get the blame. And so people tend to also be a bit too sacrificial in like attitude, because some of the times you're talking about, if you could back in the day, if you'd had a different coaching setup or just a bigger voice, I'm sure if you could have really taken aside some of these end-game leaders you're talking about and just told them, look, to you it might look like that was a fine scenario we went into, but like I could never get into that site, like, you know, like we didn't have the utility or the guest we were coming. If they could really understand it, obviously they would immediately switch. They want to win the game, but they're naively probably just thinking like, oh, you just got, you know, just do it. Yeah, it'll work next time or whatever. If you aren't in that position, I always think that's the worst position to play in the game, because think about some of the great entries, right? So in the early days, it was apEX, it was like Dupree, it was Bialy. All of these players have had slumps in their careers, because when you're the in-game leader who just does his job, and the entry rather, and the in-game leader, I always call it like sends you into a brick wall 10 times in a row. Entries are one of the only roles where they just do it. They just run through the brick wall 10 times, and if they die, then the fan just goes, what an idiot, why is he taking that fight? They don't know why you did it, you know?
Yeah, I feel like it changed with the time, because nowadays we don't have like real entry fraggers. I mean, we have entry fraggers, but they don't entry frag all the time. No, they swaps up. And for example, the great example is Astralis. I don't see the same player entry fragging all the time. Sometimes it's Glaive, sometimes it's Dupree. Magix can do it. Like Device sometimes goes there. Xipnix also. I mean, no one's like they don't have like serious roles. If I would say so, that's what I would have preferred back in the days. But what I can tell you is I didn't want to make any trouble in my teams, because I always felt like they are like a way bigger problem in the team I had back in the days. So I would have preferred say nothing and do my job, because I wasn't really happy sometimes, but at least I tried to do my job as best as possible, and everyone was okay that I was kind of a soldier, and the rest like, yeah, if we had less problems, maybe I would have changed it. I would have tell something about that, but yeah, I was too complicated back in the days.
Right, what about this? I thought a good way we could start discussing the tactics of the game and the way you see the game is just talk about your current team. So let's just start with obviously the elephant in the room is we have to talk about ZywOo if we talk about Vitality. It's just obviously like, I mean, he was voted #1 player of the year by a website, so the people it's a hot topic for people to talk about, right? Here's the question, right? Is everyone remembers the famous scenario where it went terribly when Alex tried to explain ZywOo, when he made that comment where he was like, yeah, you know, like, yeah, he gets all the frags, but, you know, we're flashing him in or whatever. And obviously people took that way too far the other way, as though he was like saying ZywOo wasn't good, right? Bearing in mind that context, how would you explain, how does apEX try to use ZywOo? Like, what type of a player is he? How much say does he have? How much are things set up for him? How would you describe it?
Well, it's really hard to explain, because there's so many things about that guy. I mean, first of all, he's one of the best teammates you can have, and it's really rare when you have such a player, because those kind of players normally have big egos. They want to be last all the time. They want to frag all the time. That guy doesn't care. Like, for real, he doesn't care. He was first. Everyone, I mean, when HLTV told him that he was first, he was okay. He said, okay, I'm first. But he doesn't give a fuck about that. You know, he's just playing CS. He just enjoys playing CS. And what I can say about him is that he needs to love what he does. He needs to love what he does. So sometimes maybe he's not going to hope that much, but you need to let him, because otherwise, if you force him to do it, I don't think it's going to work. When he wants to hope, you just leave him. Sometimes he wants to enter frag. He just wants that run. He's just running, and that's something I don't see with the other
superstars. I'm guessing
superstars. Yeah, exactly. I mean, within AK, they never enter frag. Never. They never sacrifice for the team. Look at what he did on Inferno for us. He went an encore, or we say in English encore, right? On the B-bomb side on Inferno. Anchor.
Yes.
He been an anchor on Inferno on the B-bomb side. Like, who would have done that? Who would have done this situation in this situation? No one. And obviously, what helps with that guy is that he has a big heart, but really big. He's such a good human being. And when you have such a player, it's so easy to work with. I mean, everyone maybe said that or Alex said that he was setting ZywOo in the great condition. It's true, but I mean, almost everyone could do it because it's really easy with that guy. He's naturally really talented. Everyone knows that, and yeah, you can ask him to do anything. Like he doesn't care. He really doesn't care. Sometimes I just tell him. Sometimes it's true. Sometimes I tell him, man, don't go that much first, because we need you in the late runs, because you're too important in the late runs, obviously. So yeah, sometimes, bro, calm down. Just go. Leave me go first, and we will see. But don't go first too much. That's the only player I ask in the team to do that, because obviously, once you have such a big superstar, such a good fragger, you need to ask him to be in late runs, because when he's on the bomb site, obviously it's hard to retake.
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah.
It's actually crazy. And also I wanted to mention, like, with the comments, like, with that he got like all the support and whatsoever. There's maybe 5 people, or maybe actually it's in reality it's only 2 players in the world that can put up these numbers. But let's put a Shoxy. Let's take a Shox, who is a phenomenal player. If the whole team focuses on him and supports him as much as they want to do, he will not drop numbers like ZywOo does. He's a different human being, just like Simple is. Both of them are from a different fucking world. And I want to mention, like, you can support the player as much as you want. Obviously, it will benefit him and help him a lot. But this guy often needs to tell you how to support him. So he has to have a certain feeling of the game, which I think their game sense is like undeniably one of the best in the world. And they tell their teammates also partly how to support them. It's not like apEX knows all the time how he has to flash him, or Alex knew how to flash him all the time. This guy has to have something in his head. How is the enemy is playing? So they have a very, very insane flow of the game. So regardless how much you support someone, it's gonna help him, but it's not gonna increase his numbers to be this consistent.
Obviously not. It's not possible.
How does he compare, obviously, because you played with all the classic great French carries. You played with Shox back in the day. You played with Kenny S when he was in his absolute peak. How would you compare him to players like that? I mean, you've done the attitude side of things, but like, is there something unique about him as a player?
Yeah, for one reason. With the way I saw CS in my POV, I didn't want to put ZywOo in the best condition as Alex. I mean, I wanted to put him in good condition, really good condition, but not the best, because I wanted to think about the others. And when we put one player in the best condition all the time, you miss the others, and that's what I didn't want in this lineup. So obviously I tried, and yeah, with ZywOo it was really easy, and I feel like with other players it wouldn't have been easy. Because they just want, when you're the best, you still want to be the best for your whole life, so you will not sacrifice much. And yeah, the difference with Kenny is obviously the rifle style. I mean, he plays way more with the rifle, and on some maps it helps us a lot, having someone refragging. I think he's the best refragger in the world with an AK. So I'm talking about an AWPer, but I'm talking with the AK. I mean, when he has an AK and go third on third, he's too good. I mean, he's refragging on certain map. I let him do solo buys, and I just jump to him because I know he's gonna refrag me, and maybe we're gonna win the run because he's gonna do 2 or 3 in the run. So he has something. I don't know. It's really rare. I'm really lucky to play with that guy. Not for the stat wise, no, not for all the things, but with the guy, the human we have in the team. Because when you're so talented, how can you have such a small ego? Like, for real, when I'm talking about ego, it's the bad ego, okay? Not the ego. The player's in ego, he wants to be the best. But as a team player, the only thing I can say about him is maybe sometimes too lazy and he's not working enough on certain things. Not everything, obviously, but yeah, it's part of his personality. Even if I want him to be the best for 10 years if he can, because when you have such a potential, I feel like you don't have to waste it. And yeah, I mean, he is dedicated to the team as 100%. He doesn't think about his statistics. Like, he doesn't give a damn fuck. He doesn't know about his statistic actually. He doesn't look at it. He's a great teammate. He's never raging, never. Like, he's never complaining about something. I mean, when we talk about Kenny and Shox, I mean, it's way different. We call Princess Shoxy, as everyone know. Kenny has been known to be a pretty rager.
Yeah, of course.
So, like me, for example. So, yeah, obviously, they're way too different. And I mean, maybe Kenny had the same talent, pure talent.
Sure.
But it was used way differently.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say one area I always find, because it's funny, considering these are players, Simple, ZywOo, that everyone's talked about a million times. They've been on every show. They've been the constant topic for the last 2 years. Most conversations are terrible. Like, you can tell people don't really follow the game much. Like, I don't want to hear, like, if you're an expert about CS, why the fuck are you telling me what the numbers on a page tell me about a guy? Use your brain. You watch the game. Because I'll tell you one thing no one ever brings up about ZywOo. Like, it's always the stats, like the highlights, the AWPing. Does he carry... What amazes me, the most outstanding thing about him, isn't even his mechanical ability. It's the game sense. Like, I think it's ridiculous that a player could come in with 0 tier 1 experience, and no joke, if you look like 3 months into playing for Vitality, he's already like, you would, if you took the nameplates off, you would think that's a veteran. Like, the game sense is impeccable. The only 2 players, I was trying to think of this while you were talking, the only 2 I think that even come close in terms of how quickly they had like amazing game sense would be like old school Nico and I'm going to say Cold Zero when they came in. And even then, it's not quite the same scenario. Like Nico had played like tier 2 for many years. He definitely was not like a brand new player. And Cold Zero obviously was in Brazil just playing away, like, which isn't the same as tier 1. But like those 2 have always stood out to me for that reason, because the eye test, if you know the game's like, fuck, how are they this good already? Like, that should take years to get like every angle nailed down. Because as LEGIJA says, I agree. You could give the exact same setup that like a ZywOo hater thinks that he gets to anyone except him and Simple, quite frankly. And I don't think anyone comes close to the things that they can do. Yeah, listen, some of them might still be champions. It might have been an amazing team, but there's something extra there.
100%.
I mean, how does he do it, apEX? Like, there's no way, like, as much, like, for example, I would say he has amazing teammates because he has a lot of veterans in you guys, but there's no way you comment all this shit for him, like, especially not in clutches. Like, when you clutch, you let people shut the fuck up, you let the guy play, right? So it's clearly coming from his brain.
To be honest, to explain that is pretty tough for my POV, but I don't know. It was the same that I had with Kenny back in the days when they were in clutch, for different reason. Because Kenny was too fast and he wasn't missing.
Yes,
so
he's going to hit every no scope. Yeah, of course.
When he was in a 1-3 situation, I was believing like at 100% because I knew that he could flick everyone. But for ZywOo, I don't know. He knows. The only thing I can say, he knows something. I'm like, wait, why? While watching there, and he does the perfect moves. We also say something really, really funny, that he's not taking the bullet like us, because he's doing the best move to not let people to frag him.
Oh, he's good at dodging, right? I see what you mean.
Exactly, he's dodging. Look, he's dodging bullets. Look at this 1-on-4 he did in P250 against Navi in Beijing final. Like, how can you win that in such a moment? I mean, he has 9 HP, he's 1v4 with a P250. Yeah, he does one tap to everyone. I mean, I was like, and the funny part is, well, even if he was in 1-4 with 9 HP, I was still believing. I was really still believing. I don't know, the atmosphere we had during the game was something. Yeah, I was still believing. And when you see like some clutches, sometimes he's not like a flicker like Simple with Yope. Okay, he's not like a flashy style like Kenny or Simple with Yope, but he's so efficient. I mean, he's not missing much. He's doing. I mean, in terms of positions, it's been really hard for him at the beginning with the AWP. With the rifle, it was always really good, but with the AWP, he had like really bad positioning. But now he's getting, I mean, much better. Listen to the coach and everyone in the team, and he got much better. But yeah, in clutch situation, in 1-on-2, 1-on-3, 1-on-4, I feel like he does always the best moves. And yeah, I don't know. It's so crazy to see such a player every day.
I actually have a question. Since it's like only 2 of those people, I think, in Counter-Strike that are like that exceptional, and I have the chance to ask you, how much does a player like that push the team and the players individually themselves? Like you
mean as a teammate?
Yes, you as apEX, how good this fucking guy is, how much does it push you to become better?
Well, that's a really good question, because you have 2 different things. Like, when sometimes you see that guy, you say, obviously I'm not gonna be as good as him, and yeah, sometimes really you're like demotivated in for 10 seconds, obviously. But yeah, seeing such a player is like, it's really weird. It's really weird because when you watch him, obviously, you feel it's easy. Everything is easy. And yeah, I think it helps some players. Like, for example, young guys like Nivera coming to the team. I feel like he pushed that guy to become a really good player. But the most important thing, it's a good thing for the team, is maybe they want to look like ZywOo. But if you want to be like ZywOo, you need to be a good guy in the team. You need to be such a great human being. You need to think about the team. You're not selfish. So I feel like it helps the team to get better. I mean, most likely the youngers. For the olders, it's different. We all have the past. It's different to have such a good player in the team when you have 10 years Counter-Strike and you know that maybe one game in your life or 2 games you've been at this incredible level that he has. So yeah, it's helping more youngsters, I would say, in that sense. And also that's what sometimes I'm trying to do. Not when ZywOo is there, but if someone is, I mean, I don't know, raging or not good with the team, I just say, look at Mathieu, look at him. He's not thinking individually. He's there. When I ask him to enter frag with the Mac 10, it get there, even if it's a nope. He's a great soldier, to be honest. He's the best soldier you can have. I have the 2 best soldiers in the team. I mean, even 3 with Mizuta, RPK, and him. Like, it's really easy to set up them. Obviously, sometimes it's hard because they're not giving enough inputs for the game.
Sure.
But for the rest, I mean, they're doing it. They're doing it at their 100%, and then they trust you. If you listen to them a lot and you're trying to be a great person with them, they trust you at 100%. And that's what I felt at the beginning. That those players were thinking I was their captain. I was doing a great job, and they will like maybe follow me until they die, like soldiers, like real soldiers. And when you feel that, it's really easy to call sometimes because you know that you have monsters, you have aim monsters, and you maybe for maybe 6 or 7 months I wasn't really good at fragging. In the fragging parts, I wasn't really good, but I was okay because the rest was. And if only me was a bit shaky, I mean, Mizuta was a bit at the beginning, but now he's much better. I was okay with that. I have no problem being like last in the scoreboard or in that sense because it's all right. And yeah, even if now it's a bit better, I think that having those players is really good for me. I don't know how I would code in another team, and that's for sure. It's a big help for me.
So how
go on, man.
Sorry. So how I view it basically is like you and like Shoxy, for example, in RPK, with your experience, you view ZywOo kind of like basically it's anyways your job, but you try, for you it's like an experience. How do I use this kid that is so talented to teach him? And for like, it's good to have like people like Nivera, as you say, that they're coming up and they have this ZywOo looking up to him and like wanting to become a player like him and like try to like focus a lot on that, like becoming a player like them, like him, basically, like trying to learn as much as they possibly can.
Exactly.
Your job in the end, it's just like, how do I abuse this fucking skill that this kid has and this talent to make my team basically just better, I guess.
It's not really easy to do because if you tell him that, I feel like he's gonna maybe sit down and stop playing or whatever, being maybe a bad guy or I don't know. So I never say that to him.
Yeah,
but I'm just trying to when I talk about Mathieu ZywOo, I just always say the first thing is not like he's insane, but he's just a good human first of all. And I feel like with the experience I have, it's the best team I ever had, to be honest, in my work career. I love my team more than anyone, and it's my second family, to be completely honest with you guys. And I mean, with the staff, maybe most likely with the staff, because they did such a great job. They've put a really good atmosphere in the team, like a really, really nice atmosphere that helps everyone to perform, that helps everyone to feel home when we play CS, that feel good when we're calling, etc. So yeah, it's just this atmosphere is the most important. I mean, to be honest, when I didn't want that Shox when Shocks joined the team, when they asked me, I said no, because I knew Shocks and I felt like it was a wrong move for the team. But now, since I'm the caller, I have no problem with Shocks. We've been talking together, and I really do like the guy nowadays, because we both change. We try to help each other in that sense, and everything makes the team good.
So this is what I want to say. Sorry, Duncan, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
This is what is really important and also very important for other organizations, and they have to fucking know that, because that's a very, very big mistake that many teams do. Whatever he says now, like we've been speaking about the best player in the world, not once has he mentioned that in his first sentence about his skills in-game. He's just talking about his outside skills. So when you have a player like that in your team, you always look up like to him in-game, but he also teaches you outside of the game. You have respect for that guy. You never want to piss him off. You try to learn from this guy. He's the best in the world. Regardless of how much experience I have or you have, he is the best player in the world. So you try to teach from this kid. What is he doing outside of the game? What is he doing inside of the game? Everything. And that's what I want to say, like how much important it is to have a very healthy atmosphere in your team. And that's the same like in Big, what we had. We spoke often about it. We were not a fucking good individual team, but we had a good atmosphere. We believed in each other. I was not the best player in the world, but I knew Thompson was always believing in me, even though I was like skill-wise on a very different level than he was. But he always believed in me because we were so close together outside, also outside of the game, that it made us also in-game much, much better. And knowing that you can trust always your teammates, and this is what you can tell about Vitality, that they actually care about the team. Any game that you watch outside of the streams in the background, you have you have stuff behind the team. Every time, at least 3 or 4 people sitting there and watching your game. This is ridiculous. And
I will answer something about
very few teams do that. Very, very few teams. And if you have this and see that your bosses are looking and supporting you, standing behind you whilst you're sweating, and they're behind you, believing and hoping, that's what we had also in Big, and it gives you a different feeling. It gives you this fucking 2 or 5% that you need extra sometimes.
The most important for me is actually that when they create super teams, we just need the staff behind that. You just need all the people thinking about you and just thinking outside the server or sometimes in the server for you. And that's probably the biggest chance we have in Vitality, is that we have the best stuff. Like Xtaz, I'm with this guy for 2 years. I say that in all the time, but he's such a good guy, and not a good guy in term, but he knows his job. He knows what he does. He does his job perfectly. He knows how to talk to people. He just say what he thinks and his view of the world projects. Matt, as well, has such a big experience in 9.6. He's also the good part with Matt. He's such a good human being as well. He's like ZywOo. So it's so easy to talk to him. Like, he never says something bad about you. He's just. We have like 2 different guys, the bold guy that is more angry, and the other that's almost never angry. And also, exactly. And beside that, our manager has been an Olympic medalist, so he has a really good view about outside of the game and how you need to do in your life, etc. So all those things mixed is doing Vitality, and I feel like we're not even at our 100% in a lot of sense, and I'm really happy to work with that guys, as I said.
Right, being as earlier, LEGIJA did kind of like the case for like why you can't just say it's just because they set him up that makes ZywOo amazing, which is that, as we said, like basically, we only even include simple just because skill-wise we can do it. Obviously, it's not even French, so it wouldn't even work anyway. But when we talk about that scenario, it also goes the other way as well, which is where I feel like people who are only fans of ZywOo and somehow aren't a fan of the team Vitality, y'all are tripping. Like, do you imagine a guy comes in, no matter how good your individual game sense is and your mechanics, you don't come into a team, right, and play with a bunch of nobodies and play the way that he plays now and learn the game as fast as he can as well. Like, there's no prodigy would do that. Like, they might individually be god tier. That's what Nico was when he's in mouse spots. But you know what? He still had things to learn about the game. Didn't have many good teammates he could learn them from. Most of them weren't experienced. Like, I also do think, listen, we could talk about there might be lack of fragging at times on Vitality, but what a fucking amazing team to come into if you're brand new. Think about it, the guys already played with apEX, Shocks, NBK, fucking Happy. The list goes on all the legends. And so, like, as you're saying here, right, it's all well and good to be like, he's a great guy and he's really like, not selfish. You never know, mate. You're going to the wrong team. That could ruin you. I've seen players who were really good players and then their team, like I'll give you an example. When people now look back on the G2 lineup when they were deciding between you and your lineup in a BK, or is it going to be the Shocks and Existence one? Everyone looks back now and they laugh because they go, you guys could have had ZywOo, everyone knew he was going to be good, but everyone thought he cheated. No, I'll tell you right now, ZywOo joins that team with Shocks or Kenny S. He might be an amazing player, but he wouldn't be the same player he is now. Like, if he joins Kenny S's team, he might not even be an AWPer. If he joins Shoxy's team, who the fuck knows what gets called in the mid-round? Like, sometimes things happen in exactly the right way. Like, I know that, listen, we can certainly talk about maybe we need more French stars, but I think ZywOo's had an amazing team to come into. I'm sure he's learned so much. I'm sure you guys at times were able to help him with aspects where maybe that takes years to figure out how to play the game.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. That's what I say sometimes, that I think he had the good team to develop himself, both as a human, because he was really shy at the beginning, and he needed people to take care of him, and that's what we try to do, at least, being good people with him, teach him life also, because he was kind of a small nerd, so he didn't know much about life. So yeah, I feel like he had a good team for all those aspects, to have good people around him when he felt bad. I remember in CS Summit, he had unfortunately he just received by his mom a really bad news, and what our coach said, and we said as a player, said that we're gonna do this tournament for him as a human, and all the thing together, like all the apps he got. All the apps he got during all the tournaments, the practice, etc., helped him to grow and trust everyone. He never said, "Oh, guys, I'm fragging. What are you doing now? Can you frag a little bit, please? As I have 70 kills, the second is 40." I mean, he's never going to say things like that, because he respects us, and I feel like he respects us and trusts us a lot. And that's is most important with such a talented player. And yeah, I think he came in the right team at the right moment. I don't think any other players developed that fast, but I would say that it's both obviously his talent and also the team that helped him to grow as a player. I mean, he did good.
Something actually, this sort of, maybe we can tie this back into the discussion before about the current meta, because as you were saying, I agree with you, apEX, actually. We're going to get thoughts from LEGIJA, maybe he can jump in, on the concept of like roles as entry fraggers and stuff, right? I would explain it like this, right? If, as you pointed out, apEX, if you're a team like Astralis, who's had that lineup together for so long, basically, it depends what map it is, what map situation, they just drift and they all play the roles. Like, I joke like all of them are fucking lurkers when they play certain teams, or, all of them could be entries, whatever, right? The problem is, to me, that's like, if a fan thinks, right, so we don't need roles, we don't need concepts, let's all play. It's not like, no, they're like the fucking musicians who know all the notes, all the rules of music, and they break the rules because they're geniuses, so they know when to break the rules. I do like the concept of roles, to introduce, like, it's called the layman, like a casual fan, just a basic player, right? Here's certain concepts, because without the concept of entry, you don't have the concept of trade frag, there's a million simple things you all need to know. But I will say, when I think about it now, I actually think in the modern day, we do need to start thinking of, it's one of the reasons I actually came up with the concept of the star player and stuff like that. I took it actually from Dota, where the idea is just there's only so many resources and every player can't be farmed in Dota. So you have to decide, right, who am I going to give more resources to this game? Who am I going to take them from, for example? And then I took the concept of how a team should be structured from that. But I would say in the modern day, think about who most people had as the top three. This is the one area where I don't really dispute HLTV. It's just what order you have them in. It's simple, ZywOo and Device. Just the question is, who for you is number one, number two, and number three? And then you pick your reasons why, right? I'll tell you one thing people probably don't actually think about when they look at those three players. All three of those players, ZywOo included, I've definitely seen this on certain maps, also in the modern day, don't always play the same TT spot. They don't always play the same situation on T side. They're a mixture of its freedom, but you can also tell their team trusts them to do whatever they want. If Device says, I'm taking the spot, now you just let him, of course. If Simple comes in, I'm pretty sure on his team, they just automatically start rotating away, like when he's on the fucking minimap coming close, like, right, get out of his way, the boss is coming. And obviously ZywOo, you've seen him swap up CT's positions a bunch of times. Like, I think Infernal's a good map where he does that a lot. Like, in the modern day, if you're as good as these players are, where they're like exceptionally good almost every time they're in the game. I think they almost should have more freedom. They shouldn't really be constrained by set rules. It's like if I had a football team and Messi just wants to play on the left wing, I'd fucking let him do it, mate. Maybe he has some genius idea for the reason in this one game is going to. What do you think on this? Because I do notice the top three, they seem to be a lot more, like free to do whatever they want in their teams at the moment.
Well, in the City side, like for us, in the teams, ZywOo is free to do whatever he wants. Like there is nothing that he cannot do, except sometimes when he doesn't read the money, I tell him, no, bro, it's not the moment to do that. Just do it next run, but not this run. But otherwise, I let him do whatever he wants. In the terrorist side, a little bit less, because the thing I want the most is when, I mean, you maybe even if he's such a good player, etc. What is my trust and my feeling of the game is about team play and etc. I mean, we've seen Astralis winning for a lot of years. Obviously, they have talented players, etc. But what is more admirable about them is their team play and how they react to things together, etc. And that's my POV on that sense. So I don't let him do 100% of the moves on the T side. That's true. But yeah, when I feel it depends on the moment as well. Like if he's on fire and he says, I'm going to do that, I say, bro, run. Do whatever you want. And at 95% of the time, he does the kill and he helps us to win the run. So it depends on the moments of the moment. If he's average this game, maybe I will not let him because I see he's not at his 100%. I mean, it depends. I can't say I never let him or I let him all the time, but depends the context.
Sure.
For my POV.
And by the way, I'll just throw this out there for fans if they don't get it. Like, the reason why a lot of teams don't do that is because also the knock-on effect is hard. Like, for example, whoever his spot he takes on CT side, they have to play another spot. There's reasons why people don't do it. But the reason why, in my opinion, because it was Simple who showed me this when they used to have Zeus in the team, and the most noticeable one is he used to just sometimes replace Zeus as B anchor on and Mirage, because obviously that's the spot where you just go on. If you think Zeus is having a bad game, you exploit him all day long. In my opinion, that's one thing you can do if you have a superstar that a normal team can't do, which is, if I'm the superstar like that and I am just dropping 40 every time they come, I just mow them down. Like, I've got to take responsibility if they just only go to the other side now. Like, why don't I go and cover that guy? Like, imagine playing against that Navi. I mean, you did. Like, imagine thinking, right, I could run into the B side and it might be Zeus behind the fucking, like, that car, or it might just be Simple with an AWP already on me. Like, you already have to, like, second guess that, like, slow it down, get information. Like, there's all these extra effects you can have that won't just show up on the scoreboard necessarily,
On the City side, that's so true. That's what we're saying all the time. It's when you play also Device or Simple, you never know where they are in City side. They don't have a specific spot because obviously they can be denied by nades. If we know that Simple is always window and mirrorize and they jungle, like, it's really easy to deny him and he's not gonna do much kills. That's obvious because CS nowadays is at a higher level. But when you have no clue, when you start a run, when's gonna be the upper? He can be anywhere. Even if he does a kill, he can move on. He can do to another one. And that's what I think that the first one to do that a lot was probably Device, like switching up positions, swapping up. Like, you just got killed someone there. Okay, let's go back there. But he's already on the other side of the map, etc. So I think, it's really needed to have those players doing whatever they want, mainly on the City side and also on the T side to control. For the map control, for me, if you do the controls, having your star player at a different position is really good. I mean, sometimes on Inferno he comes banana, sometimes he's boiler, sometimes he's mid, sometimes he's lurking apartment. Depends where he is. And I think it's a good way to see CS in that sense, because maybe the most important when you face someone is to scare the opponent. You can, I mean, those players can scare the opponent, and that's the easiest way to win rounds. I mean, we've seen some teams that was avoiding ZywOo for real. They were like, no, we're not gonna go on that bomb site. Oh, he did one kill. Let's go back to the other side, etc. And that was really funny to watch because sometimes we were thinking about that and we did trap to some team that we were like, oh, ZywOo is here. Let's go back. But we were 4 on the other side. So okay, ZywOo is really good, but he's not like 4 player on the bomb site.
Just listening to that, and also what I like, anyways, like kind of always thought is, it's different for teams to play when you know you face an AWP, especially AWP, because it's just a way too strong weapon. It is.
Yeah.
And if you know you're facing ZywOo, Device, Simple, Surson, it's always already a different mentality in your head going into the game. Going into the game, you will always try to, like he says, even now, the teams even try to avoid them. So now let's take ZywOo as an example, okay? He plays the game now, he plays like 50 matches, okay? In these 50 matches, he notices teams are avoiding him, they don't come. So in his head, he has to know, I don't have impact on my position to try to avoid me. I have to go around. For other oppas, it's not that much. Let's take Aqua or, I don't know, Brokey as an example. Very good oppas individually, they can hit their shots, but teams are playing very, very different against them than you would play against a ZywOo. Completely much different. You will always use it against Device. You don't know where these guys are. They have such a good game sense, including their teammates have insane game sets, and they sometimes tell them, okay, I prepared now, be overpass for you. You can now pick Monster. He will be not aware. Sometimes Ziptix will call it for Device. That's also another thing that we have to take in consideration.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
what I want to say, they are used to these things. They are used. People avoid me. I need to look for frags all the time, constantly. So they automatically get much more versatile and get much different feeling and flow of the game than other oppas even ever had to think about. So
I agree. That's what we're trying to do also with ZywOo, because at the beginning it wasn't moving that much as city side. So sometimes he had high impacts and sometimes really low impacts. So because one of the bad things about ZywOo is not questioning enough himself sometimes about what he did wrong and what goes wrong on the game, as he's more like natural skilled, you know.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm watching every game we play. I mean, I'm watching every opponent. I'm watching almost all the game that happens every day. And sometimes I tell him tips. I say, bro, you should do that. It's gonna work. 100% it's gonna work. And he does it, and obviously it works. And he does that again. And it's not easy for him because he's not a natural roper at the beginning. He did it because his team wanted to do it. Obviously, it worked pretty well. But I mean, in the AA team. But yeah, he didn't move enough at the beginning on the city side. Like, not enough at all. Like, I remember Mirage, he did two things. Starting window, going back city. That was his rotation. Like a lot of hoppers, actually. Like a lot of hoppers. Yeah, but when you know that the hopper is city, if you're good in game leader, or even if you have good teammate, you're going to avoid that guy really easily. By nades, by another hopper, by etc. So that's what we try to do with him a lot. I mean, I remember back in the days, maybe in 2019, even if it was a fantastic year for him, sometimes we felt that he didn't move enough. So we put him a kind of a book where on each map what he could do when he was in default, etc. Like, okay, I have 6 things to do. I can do 6 things on this map. Like aggressive, passive, depends. So he could pick on his paper what he could do, because when it's not natural for you, you need to learn, and he learned it pretty well on that sense. Now I'm really happy because I play a lot of map with him on city side, and for maybe 6 months now, and I just told him that he had to move a lot more. I wanted him to have a better communication with me, and that he had to move on the information we had, etc. And in that sense, he went this year, like the last 6 months, he got much better in that sense. And it's really easy to talk to him. Like, I tell him a lot of things about him, his mistakes, etc. He's never saying anything. He says, okay, I'm gonna do better next time, etc. So yeah, it's good to work with him.
One thing I think we should obviously talk about as well is like the role of the coaching staff and the organization in terms of what you've been able to do with the squad. Because one thing I think gets lost in the whole mix of you guys bringing Nevarian, and we want to talk about the 6-man thing in a minute, but for now, the angle I wanted to talk about is this. These are 2 players in a row that came into this core. So there was ZywOo at the beginning, and now there's obviously Suitor, 3 in fact, Suitor, and then now you have Nevera. And in terms of Nevera and ZywOo, they're star players when they play the game. Like, they get the resources, so they are supposed to be the best player on that map. Like, that's the area where I feel like you guys are way ahead of a lot of the other teams in the scene. I think the only team comparable is Fnatic, where they did the same thing with Brolan, which is the other teams in the scene that have the legends. Since they're still good players, it's kind of like if I go and join like a really storied football team that's had the same players for 10 years. It doesn't matter how good I am. I'm joining at the bottom of the ladder, as it were, and I'm going to get what they give me. And if I prove myself, they might give me more responsibility. And, you know, if I'm good, maybe in 3 or 4 years, I'm like the best player, whatever, you know. But until then, the CS teams, the best example ever was probably Nip with that original 4 players who kept kicking the 5th guy. What they would do is it really was like that. It was like, right, I've got my CT spots. He plays like this on T side. There's 2 things left. You can maybe pick one if the other guy isn't our friend as well. Like, if you go into those scenarios, doesn't matter who you are, you're going to be a different player. So the thing I'm actually impressed with is you brought in players like ZywOo now with the Vera, and it's not like you're bringing them in like, right, you have to be better at a totally different role, and then one day I'll let you try the role. It's like, no, I brought you here to be what you are, so let's just put you in those positions. Let's set you up. In fact, even if I'm a more experienced player, we win if you play this way. So there's very few rare teams that have done that, mate. Mostly it's like, you know, the new guy has to sort of almost be twice as good at something he's not supposed to do, so he gets a chance to do what he's good at. So what's been the role in this sense? 'Cause it must have been a decision, right?
Exactly. I mean, I take the example of before. When I started to being game leader, that's what I told to my teammate and told to myself. I didn't want to do the same mistake that we did in the past. I remember we lost to LEGIJA with the first event we did, but with Envious we kicked out Kiyoshima to bring Devil. Okay.
Yes.
So they were like totally 2 different players. But I didn't, but the rest tried. Is to put him in the same spot as Kiyoshima in the same roles, but he wasn't the same player at all, and obviously it didn't work at all. Like Devil wasn't used at his best. He has some talent in the lurk role, but in the entry fragger role, like he wasn't at his best, and obviously it didn't work. So what I tried to tell to myself is I didn't want to do the same mistakes, and when and our coach also is not gonna do these mistakes. He knows that every player brings different things, and if you want to swap up players, you're not gonna have the same players at all. It's gonna be different. You need to swap things, etc., etc. And yeah, obviously we're trying to do good in that sense. Like Misuta at the beginning, it was really hard with Misuta because he had like no experience. But when I say no experience for the high level, it's no experience. Okay, he was kind of a player coming from Faceit. And he came up in a T1, okay? So it's like Robs. I mean, he wasn't in T1 with most sport at the beginning. They were more like Tier 2, but he was coming from that. And Misuta had even less, I felt, even experience than Robs, because Robs had more FPL games.
Yes.
He had more things like that. Like for real Misuta, that was really hard task to help him to grow as a player. And on some months, he was a really shy guy and he didn't want to say what he wanted to do. And once we talked to him and we said, what you want to be as a player? You need to identify yourself, being really passive, being really aggressive, being more entry, being more support player, what you like. And he says that he likes to run, he likes to entry frag, to run, to play with his skill, because he's really good aim-wise. So we say, okay, I'm going to put you in the best condition in that sense. You're going to run. We're going to put you in good condition when we can, because obviously sometimes you need to sacrifice for the team. Everyone does. Even ZywOo sometimes sacrifice for the team. Obviously, when B and Core on Inferno. So to make it work, you need to love what you do, but making a little bit of sacrifice. That's life. That's how it goes. And in the past, in the French team, we didn't think that way. We said, okay, you're in good team. You should love what you do. So you're gonna do this role, even if you don't like. You're gonna try to be good, and that's never worked. It's never working doing that sense. I'm 100% sure. It's again the human. The human. When you're happy in your life, when you're doing good, you do things that you love. Obviously, when you support player, like it's not a selfish player that plays support in CS are not selfish guy in real life. I mean, you know what I mean? It's It's often the person is also the same as a player. And,
I always say it's like your character in real life mirrors your playing style.
Exactly. Your English is a bit better than mine, so it's easier for you to talk that way. But yeah, exactly. And it helps everyone in that sense, and that's also something I experienced in my career. Sometimes I did too much things that I didn't like for the team, and it didn't make me really happy. So with these players, it's not easy to form them because Misuta, as I said, had no experience in nothing, in communication, in game sense, in nades, in nothing. Like for when he came, he was like a baby of CS. He knew he has a good wrist, to be honest. He was aiming really damn well, but the rest was nothing. And for almost a year now, we've been working with him, and it got much better. I mean, he had, even if he doesn't play all the maps, the two last even he had like crazy ratings. With the roads he has, he did really good. We were really happy with him, and yeah, he deserves a lot of shot. And the same for Nivera. Nivera has just a bit more experience though, because he came from Heretics. They played a lot of official games. He had it's like the 6 months helped him for sure, even if he lacks a lot of things, as you might know, as he is pretty young, etc. But yeah, forming. I mean, that's been the strategy of Vitality. They want to form players to become in the team. I mean, they want that, but if they didn't have the staff we have and the player we have, it would not be possible, because you cannot form players wherever you want. That's something maybe sometimes you might not know, but it's pretty true, and it's an exhausting work sometimes, because you put more hours with the youngest. You're watching demos. You need to learn them how to watch demos. You need to learn them everything. Like it's basically babies, but it's been really good to have this experience. And mainly in France, we lacked those young players that we had to form, because obviously for years before ZywOo, we had all over the same players, the shuffle 1, shuffle 2.
Can I add one thing to that? Did you guys not allow the young players to become the players that you want them to be? Because that's what I once also said.
Before?
Yes. But when you had look, how I always saw the French scene was like the German scene. Big fucking egos, not wanting to give other people the opportunity because they're afraid to lose their jobs. In the end, towards the end, I tell you how it was, or how I saw it. And this is zero negative thinking about any person. Smith, for example, I can imagine I cannot imagine that he tried to help the community or help the lower player people. I think he focused more on his job security.
No, I don't think. No, it's not like that, because he could have stayed in. He could have stayed in G2. He had more opportunities and he stopped. No, I don't think it's about that. For Smith, he's been. Not people know him, but he's been such a good teammate. Maybe one of the best you can have, and he didn't feel good at the end that when he wasn't good on CS, So no, that's not about that. I feel like the main thing, and I already spoke about that, but the main thing we lacked in France is people can form players, okay? Because to form Misuta, it takes us 8 months, okay? Which team on the tier 1 has wasted 8 months almost to waste?
That's true.
That's true.
That's
so obviously, on the Danish scene, it's always been easy. They had this Berry guy, this Undone for years, etc. That's been taking the young talents, forming them, and up tier 1. And obviously, they have a crazy scene.
That's true, actually.
But we need those guys. And maybe in Germany, you didn't have those guys. In Sweden, look, in Sweden, it's the same. For years and years, they didn't change because they didn't have those formers under Fnatic, under NIP, that was able to form those young stars, because obviously there is young stars in your team, in your country. But to form them, it takes time, a lot of time. One day, I'm not gonna lie, when they asked us for Misuta, I was like, what the fuck? I'm starting to be in game leader, and you give me a rookie? It's not even a rookie. It's even like a low rookie. Like the guy just knows CS for a year. It's not true, but you know what I mean. And it's a lot of work. It is really exhausting. So that's why for me, having those academy team, like everyone does nowadays, is the good thing. But you need the right people to do it. You need the right people to form our young guys, and you need to have experienced player to do it. And for me, for example, that's something maybe I will do in the future, because I feel like the French lacks these players. We could have them. We could have existence. Like, come on. If he wanted to stay on CS and work with youngsters, he could have find a good organization, even if he went to Vitality.
Who's going to pay you, apEX? Who's going to waste money on you building like a rookie team? Because to build a rookie team, you have to pay these kids. Sorry?
Academy teams. Man, listen. How cost a player nowadays a good player to transfer. Okay, it's 200k. It's 300k for so okay. So if you build some young players that's really talented, you pay a guy more, obviously, because the guy has more. Let's say you pay him 5k, 10k, whatever. It depends on how much. And you pay the young players. Obviously, you don't pay them like the others, but you play them like an academy, like in the football, like the 17 years old players. They paid by the club, not much, but they paid actually. So it helped them to live, at least to live a little bit, but to let them to grow. And that, I think that's the way they should do it. Maybe some academy, and I think it will work. Some small organization will do that, and then sell the players. Like LDLC, how many players have been sold by LDLC in the past few years? A lot, because it's the only small organization that does that. So for me, I think you can find something except than paying contracts really high, etc. I think it could be a good balance. Obviously, you need to. Not putting a ZywOo, but you need to get like maybe 2 or 3 players out to pay the others for the year. But I think it's a good economy to get that. That's
Look,
my
I
POV.
personally think I'm 100% on your side, and I personally love to do also these things. And Big also back then they did this thing with HP Omen, where they started this academy team, and now 2 years later it was all 16 years old players. They were just picked by Face It level ranking, and like we were all looking at the players in the end. And we had our 5 final players, and now all 5 players went to alternate, went to Unicorns of Love, which are like the 3rd and 4th best teams in Germany. And they were 16-year-old kids.
Exactly.
What we did, we put like decent coaches. We had like Kaka, who was at the beginning. Obviously, he had the most experience out of all, and he formed the team. And then we had like other ex-professional retired players that had like some idea. Tugux, for example, helped a little bit there. He helps those kids. He teaches those kids. And once you help them and learn them how to play Counter-Strike, they will find their own groove. They will find their own way how to do things. And they grew. And now they are all, genuinely all 5 players went to the 3rd and 4th best organization in Germany from being an absolutely nobody. Absolutely nobody.
So I think that would have been a good thing. I think like organization can make profit. They can make a little bit of profit, and they can also like not having huge buyouts to pay big players, just having a kid coming from the academy team. Look at football, like Dortmund. Look at Lyon in France.
Brother, we have the same example in Counter-Strike with Gambit. Look at what they did with their team, and I tell you, if they fucking sell every single player they have, they will at least make $500,000. Because Shiro will be a guy you will have to sell for 250,000.
Exactly.
200,000. He's 20 years old. He's dropping very good numbers. He's young. Look, they made top 10 with this young team, or top 15. I think even top 10 or top 15. I don't know. But that's a fucking big thing. They were all young kids, Gambit youngsters. They were, and now they make a team, and you can make a lot profit out of these guys.
I agree, and I think that's the future for the organizations. They need to look in that sense. But for me, if you want to do it really well, you need the right people. If you are the right people doing it, I mean, you can do like such a great things. And I know in French chain we always had talented player. I know we had talented player, but we didn't have this player that could maybe in a month or 2 adapt to the team, because it's a fact. CS is a short term. For now, it's short term.
Yes.
As you can change players whenever you want, etc. It's not like League of Legends or maybe other game when you can change only 6 months or a year. You can do it whenever you want. So it's people want to have results, or also they want the player to adapt really fast. So if you ask that, you need experienced player. That's why we swapped between us, because I felt like there were some other youngsters, and I talked about it before, but I didn't know if they were ready to go in LAN 1 week after and having the major in 2 months, etc. So yeah, it's a hard part, and formers are the most important, and that's what we lack in France, and that's why for me Danish scene is the biggest right now, because it's not them they don't have the biggest community. I mean, Brazilians and Russians are way more players on the game.
Of course.
So yeah, it's for something, and I think you need to give credit to these guys. I don't know with who I talked to about that, but he told me about another guy also that helps those young players. They're like, and then he's not now because he's a coach, but they've been like 5 years to form those young players, and yeah, when you have that, when you have a really, I mean, maybe not the best in game leader, but that you know the basics of CS that can help you in the most important things, except aim. It's helpful, and that's why they've been the best country in the world in CS for a few years now.
Yes.
Look, you don't have to be the best player to be a good coach.
No,
or
no,
impactful coach.
Yeah.
That's very important for other people also to know. You can.
ErikHillestad for our coach.
That's what I also wanted to say. How does this guy actually have so much impact on the team, which I think he has tremendous impact. And I cannot imagine that he will teach you how to play Counter-Strike. No. Also, personally, like I also always told my previous teammates, even though I played higher on a higher ranking than colleagues ever did, but I cannot teach you how to play Counter-Strike all the time. Like I cannot teach you every detail of it. I can make you a better player, but I don't tell you how to aim or how to take duels. You have to know that. This is your job. Individual things are your job. I can tell you how to make your individual positionings and everything better and easier for yourself. I don't tell you how to aim.
Yeah. I mean, a coach like ErikHillestad, even if I talked about it before, I will say it again. He was in the sub-top in Source. So he was pretty known as a good in-game leader, but he was like, maybe he's a kind of Barry a bit. He was like a kind of Barry in the Danish scene. Then he stopped CS, CSGO started, and he found a job as a commentator in ESL France. So he was a commentator and he was following all the games, etc. So I think it can be an advantage if when you watch, when you know CS, when you love the tactical part of CS, when you know, etc., and you're in this job. And yeah, I mean, the most important thing with ErikHillestad is that he's really respected by everyone in the team. I mean, what I like, and that was the same when we had in Very Games back in the days. When you joined at Very Games, it was maybe made by Nyak, the manager, and Existence. You were following something like a club mentality, you know, and you had no choice to follow it. That was the way they were seeing the live, the organization, the game, and you needed to follow that. And it's a bit the same with ErikHillestad. I mean, he's really respected by everyone in the team, by every players we played for. That you need to follow him. And I remember it's a football thing, but I remember when Lotte a football coach that's been in Real Madrid, he was saying to his players that they had to trust him. But it's not how it works. You don't have to trust him. People have to trust you. But how can I say in English? Sorry, but it's really hard. People, they don't need to trust you. You just make things happen to trust you. You know what I mean? They need to trust because you're doing things, not because you say it.
Yes.
And exactly, you're proving them that they can trust you. Exactly, and that's what happened with ErikHillestad. He never say, "Yeah, trust me, guys. I will be the best coach, or I will do a great job." He does things. He does things that works and that make us better, and etc. And he's perfect at his job. Sometimes he's really hard with us. Sometimes he's really easy with us. Sometimes he's working all the time. He's really passionate, and that's something I really liked for me, because in the French scene, as you might know, we never had really dedicated player to the game. Like, it's a mentality. No, I'm okay to say that, for example, RPK is not like me, but it's okay. Everyone is how he is. Yes. But I feel like in game leaders need to be a bit more dedicated than the others, and that's a true part. And I found my groove with that guy because he's like me. We're watching all the games. Sometimes during the weekend, we just sending message to each other like, "Did you watch that run? Yeah, it's really good, etc." Like we always watching the games, always trying to improve everyone else with the team we're watching, with everything, when we see a move at City side on the other for our teammates on the other side of the map, we say, "Yeah, you might do that. It's working, etc." And Having such a guy is helping me a lot to be an in-game leader and to be trying to be a great in-game leader and trying to be a good captain for the team, because we're kind of the same, and I think it's really important to have a really good relationship between the coach and the in-game leader, because you're both making the game, creating the game, doing everything, and if you have the same view, I feel like you can do great things.
One thing I want to ask about is, right, obviously everyone knows the angle of like you guys actually do a real 6-man rotation. Like if it's Dust or Inferno, we see Nevera come in, depending on who it is he's replacing. Right, in this scenario though, what I wanted to ask is like, where does the idea come from? But more importantly, where does it go? Because no one's asking the second part. Because here's the problem I see is, the real reason why I think most people never did a true 6-man rotation like yours, where you rotate on maps, is because like Astralis is the best example. The reason why I knew they definitely weren't ever going to do that real rotation, I know they technically do it now with Bobski, but I actually think they do that for other reasons, because I actually think he's worse than Zipnix on that map. I don't even think it's a fucking good move. But anyway, put that to one side. That's not what my point is about. My point is this, right? If you're Astralis, if you recruit a player and say this player's for real going to play, he's not just going to play like it's one game, you know, or because this guy's off for a month. He's going to be a real player. I'm basically saying he's as good as at least one other player in my team, Astralis. So the problem becomes, if he really is that good, let's say I did a good job, I recruited the right guy, let's say in their case, it was Valde that they brought in or something, someone like everyone thinks could play in Astralis. The problem then eventually becomes, whoever the guy who plays the least maps are, might be 2 maps, might be 1 map, eventually, if he really is that good, he's not going to sit there for a year and only play 1 map, you know. Eventually, it becomes too good a problem. Like, it's a good problem to have. You want 6 players that are awesome. So the reason why I ask this is, I don't blame you guys for testing the experiment initially. Like I seen Nevera play when he was in Rex, but you know, that team looked like they were just onliners. We haven't played any lands. So I was like, okay, let's say they're just trying to transition him into the team. They want to test him out, or they want to try him instead of someone else, or like everyone always says, maybe it's a way to keep people motivated to play if it's not their map, you know, so they don't get taken. The problem becomes though, if in a year from now, Nevera's like, you know, top 5 AWPer in the world, eventually he's not just going to want to play 2 maps, is he? So how do you kind of see that approach? Because it surely can't be like a super long-term approach, right?
Well, it depends of a lot of things. I mean, obviously, if a player come in the team and plays super well, like better than the others, obviously you have to replace to replace him on other maps. You need to give him more credits. That's life. That's normal. And I mean, in the sport, it's happening, and I think it's a good mix. We just need to have a good mix between that. I mean, it's really nice. For one thing that's really important is it's really nice to have that system, because it helps everyone, because it everyone to get better in everything, to be a better teammate, to be a better player, to be better on his position, etc. Because when you know that someone is right behind you, that has 2 maps, that plays super well on 2 maps, you feel like, okay, this guy is already good on 2 maps. I'm not really good on 1. He may be going to take my place. And obviously, as you said, if you playing 2 maps is not enough, and that's why he plays 3 maps right now, Nevera. So it's a good mix for him, okay. I think. For now, maybe he's gonna play more in the future, maybe less, depends. And that's the mentality of the coach, is that it's not gonna be for 6 months. If tomorrow he sees that Nevera is not good on the map, or if Mizuta is not good, or if Shox is not good on another map, he's gonna change. He's gonna change to swap another player, etc. So this mix, is gonna help us, because we're not. So
by the way, just so I'm clear here,
we're not gonna keep the roster if we perform bad on the map. We're going to swap up. Like, for example...
Just to clarify, though, you're also, just because I think fans aren't going to get this, you're also not saying it's just Nevera who swaps in and out. Potentially it could be another player, right? Like maybe Nevera plays 5 maps and someone else who swaps in and out for 2 maps, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. That can be possible. For example, Mizuta is doing exams this year, and it's really hard for him to do both, and sometimes he's pretty tired. So that's why we left another map to Nevera, because to just help Kevin to be good on the 3 maps he played, or 4 maps, sorry, and can do his exam on the side. So yeah, we're not in the way that Nevera's gonna play 2 maps, or Shock's gonna play 5 maps, or apEX gonna play 6 maps. It's gonna be with the level we have on the moment. If we can change, if we can swap up, if a player is not good for 6 months on a position, etc. We just want to to make the things. And I think if you do that in that sense, it's gonna work. For example, you cannot have always have 6 good maps. It doesn't exist.
Not, yeah.
It doesn't exist. And for example, like Astralis are not playing as good as they were on Nuke, and Bobski is playing, but maybe tomorrow Xibni is gonna take the place, because I mean that's how I see the thing. But that's how it goes with us. Sometimes you have a less good map, and you think about, okay, why this map isn't good enough. Sometimes someone is not playing as his best. Someone is not feeling good on the map. Someone maybe this duo is not working well together, and etc. And that's why we're trying to swipe up. And I think it can work if all players are dedicated in that sense. And obviously, it's not easy. That's why you need a really good atmosphere in the team. Otherwise, it will not work. And for example, something I can say is that it helps Shocks, for example. Shocks from that moment is... I mean, Shocks always has periods, like yours. Exactly like yours. He has periods. And he has period when he's not feeling good, when nothing is going good, etc. And when he has period when he's like the 2015-16 Shocks doing clutches, etc., etc. And since Nivera joined it, I don't feel he's been... a bad teammate or a bad player for 5 months now. So yeah, obviously he's not playing on Inferno, for example. Sometimes it's not really easy for him because it's a third map of the best of 3 most of the time.
Yeah.
So, but he accepts it. He accepts it because the coach said it, and he agrees with the coach. And when you're coming in Vitality, that's the way you need to think. Otherwise, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thing is, what he said at the end there, Leggy, is the game changer, right? It's that the coach can decide these things. Because I tell you what, if you go to a past team that it's Sharks, could be any great player, mate, half the time you wouldn't even be able to get the moves done just because of the owner. Like, the owner would be like, that's my guy. Like, I paid X million for him, or, he used to be the best player. They wouldn't even be on the table to do some of these moves. So to me, there's another thing I'll give props to Vitality. They actually empowered the coaching staff to make these moves. Like, that's very bold if it's true that you really can replace any player. I mean, in theory, it wouldn't be ZywOo, obviously, but, like, in theory, it could be if it was the right map, if someone played specialist role.
Right, that's why these people are successful. They know what they're doing. They know what they're... Like Vitality, they're such a huge brand. I can only imagine, like, from where the people are, from what I see, they're in Formula 1 or whatsoever, in everything involved. So they're professionals, just like I personally see Astralis is. And it's first of all the CEOs and the heads of the teams that have to make the players know or give the coach all this trust, full trust,
the power,
and to tell him or give him the feeling, okay, it is your thing, and if you fail, it is your failure. I'm sorry, but you have this feeling as a coach. When once you have this feeling from your organization, that's why I think, for example, Vitality or let's take Astralis as an example. They are not involved in too many games. Their main focus is Counter-Strike. That's why, and obviously they have Zonic, for example. But let's take a Cloud9 as an example. They have League of Legends, way higher rated than Counter-Strike is. They have other different games, for example, and their focus is not too much on Counter-Strike. So they have their manager. I don't know who it is. Now it's like Henry G. I think he's having a different approach. But back then, I think they were just throwing the team together. Do whatever you want. You have a coach, you have a manager, but that's it. So the team is just living for itself. Team is playing for itself, and nobody's talking about to Jack. Nobody's talking about to I don't know who. So they are living in their own world, and these players are creating a little bubble. The coach, it's depending. Like, not every team is the same, but there's many occasions I can imagine that teams that play bad, they push the fault on the coach, just so they can keep their job.
Yes. I mean, that's a classic thing we in Richard always say on by the numbers. Like, the first person to get the blame is always the coach.
Yes, I don't blame the players because it's the Org's fault. It's the organization's fault that they give these players this power.
Yes.
Why do you take a coach? Why do you give me a coach? What am I a coach for? To just sit around and just analyze games? I'm an analyst then. I'm not a coach.
That's the problem we had.
Kids, and if I have to teach these kids, I also have to have the power over these guys to tell them, when do you wake up? Sometimes when we're on LAN, I tell you awake at 9 a.m. and be on the breakfast table. And you have to make these people know, your players know, that the coach is in charge of that. He's in charge of you. He will, if you fail, it's coach's fault. There's no blame to you. Simple as that.
That's how it works on for us, and that's how it needs to work. I mean, French has been really bad because of that, because players had the power, and when players have the power, it's a disaster because it means that some players are on a higher level than the others, so you're not on the same note. You're like there is a king between the players, and that's not how it works. And I see the same in PSG in football. Like that's how it works. Like the feel like it's more between the owners and the players than with the coach, and that's why maybe they're not enough successful in big matches. And I mean, I always felt that it was how it need to be, having the coach having all the power, having all the power on the transfers, on etc. Like maybe sometimes it's not possible because it may be too costly, but for the rest, it's really important to have people like your staff having this power.
Let me think. Well, one thing I would say about that, by the way, is that's also something where another thing that a coach can do in your case, like actually I think the Masuta example is probably the best one, because as you say, it took that many months to form him into the player that he's been like the last couple of months where he's been much better, but no one else would give a player that much time. Like you just cut him like even if it's the same players, you might cut him like 3 months in, because you might just go, look, we tried, it failed, he was just okay, or he's having issues, because he's being put straight to tier 1. Like in that scenario, I could see a lot of ways that goes wrong. So I think of some of the old French teams, your scene especially was one of the worst I've ever seen for kicking players that aren't even bad at the game. You just don't like them anymore. Like that's what, like in the modern day, the teams that are the really good organizations, if someone gets kicked, where it's like he's still good, but why was he kicked? Always behind the scenes, someone tells me, look, he just did some shit that was out of control. Like he was like egotistical, or he was ruining things. Like basically, you don't, in theory, get kicked for those reasons anymore. You're not supposed to get kicked because we had an argument, or I think you should in-game lead differently. Like I feel like your scene could have been rescued a long time ago if we'd have had these coaches who had that. Because I see the same thing in G2, mate. Like from the time that Malik actually had control over that team, it's night and day compared to what it used to be like when the superstar egos ran the team.
Yeah, but we won more events. I'm just kidding. It's kind of true, but yeah, obviously, like G2 after for example, when they kicked us NBK and me and tried to form the existence, etc. I mean, it's not the players that had the power, but kinda for that period. And since they tried to come back, they were not successful until they took Malek and Nyak. They reunited together to just recreate the atmosphere that they were like above everyone, and they were committing for their players. And if it's a mistake, they're doing mistakes in maybe a player pick or etc. Okay, it's their fault, and they have to talk to the boss, to the guy who is giving the money. But otherwise, it's not your fault. So it's the way to success, and that's how it is in sports most of the time. And I think that's exactly when I see those kind of new team coming with a lot of money. They just, first of all, they want the players, like they don't want the staff around that, because the staff is the most important. If you don't have the right people to get to form your guys, to create them in the same mindset, etc., it's gonna be really hard. You maybe will have a honeymoon period, but otherwise it will not work, and that's 100% sure thing. So see if any big organization is listening to us, by right peoples first, and then the players.
Yes, put it this way, when last year, I'm not going to be doing it from now on because you see, all the fucking teams listen, but when last year I would basically, I was almost like the unofficial fucking general manager for the Flashpoint teams. Like every player that was good, who I thought was available, I would put in the fucking group chat in this where all the teams are, like this player's available, he can play this role. I'd even give him like some commentary, like this guy's a gamble, take him if you want to try a new player. This guy's a legend, but he might be a good player later, a whole bunch of names. Sadly, one of the areas that they ignored the most was obviously anyone who watches the game can see if it's a really skilled player, and I'm like, this guy's good and he's available, right? Anyone could do that. But the problem with the coaches is you have to know the scene to know if they actually know what they're talking about. So I have to say, the way I knew that a lot of big orgs weren't interested in spending money on CS wasn't just that they passed on, like, you know, the Nico Super Team or fucking Evil Geniuses. It's not those. Like, those ones are obvious. It's when I would tell some of the ones that are like brand new to CS, here's what you do. You tell me you have, because some of them were telling me, by the way, like, yeah, like, I have $5 million I will spend. I was like, well, then I'll stop like shopping around for it. I can tell you who to go get now. So the first thing you do is you go and you get someone like Zonic and you tell him, right, you're going to be the development like lead of this entire project. I'm going to pay you 5 times what I pay you at Strat. You know, like, you start, like we're saying here, you start with the staff, because the idea is, I trust Zonic, where even if the first 3 players coming in aren't amazing, he's going to find them eventually, and the structure that they're then going to come into, then when you have the good players, you're going to take off. And by the way, think of what someone like Astralis loses if a player like that goes. I agree, like that's probably the most misunderstood part, because we're not even talking purely Zonic for like his mind for the game. We're talking about what is the atmosphere he created, what is the authority structure, how does he win over newer players, older players. Like, these are skills that are like worth, I mean, in English you'd say like they're worth their weight in gold. Like, you can't measure how important that is. It's more than what you see in the server.
Yeah. I 100% agree. Like, also when you put such a guy as your general manager or whatever you call him, it's gonna help you to get the players you want, because when they see, okay, they got Zonic from Astralis, they got that guy, such a legendary coach already, etc. They will be, they say, okay, it's a good thing to do. It's not like any other organization that just want to pay us a lot. It's a real project. You see a real interesting project, and that's what I think is the most important for my with the experience I have now. Because when you're a young player, you don't see things like that because you have no experience and you can just be drove by the money. But in that sense, even if that's what I'm talking sometimes, I will not join another team even if it's for twice my salary, because I'm happy where I am, and you never know what's on the other way, and the other way. You know what you have, and it's really precious, and that's what I always say to myself when, for example, when we lost the Globals final, etc. I just say it's fine. I love my team. I'm happy where I am, and we're just gonna grind and get even better, etc. And I think that's the right mentality to have in that sense.
I think we should ask about. Oh, sorry, go on, again.
No, I just wanted to mention it's like the same thing. What I was thinking about Thompson, that he had so many other opportunities that he just denied because he followed his heart in this like moment. He followed his heart, his passion, and his belief, and he turned down offers like FaZe and whatsoever. So I just know, like, being happy. Look, even if he would have joined FaZe, God fucking knows what would have happened 6 months after.
Of course.
He knows he has his place. I'm sure apEX knows he's getting well paid and everything. His life is good where he is right now. On top of that, his team is also perfect. That makes his life twice as better, rather than having twice the money. So he's happy in both ways.
Let's do it, apEX. Here's the question, mate. And there's no answer to the question, so it's just a fun one to talk around, of course. So the question goes like this. It's like I said on Twitter. If everyone else... Right, here's the problem. I'll explain it like this. If you ask me who the best player is, I personally think you can pick ZywOo or Simple. It's fine. It's preference. They're just so good. But I pick Simple, right? And I have my own reasons. I've done a million pieces of content and people know what they are. But here's the problem, right? At the end of it all, I can also then say, since I think Simple is the best player, I'm going to be even harsher on Na'Vi. Like, I think it's terrible that this player, like, I think the IGL doesn't, I could do a million things, right? Because logically, if I think they've got not just the best player ever, and they don't win, like, yes, he could certainly be doing some things wrong, but odds are other people have got some problems, right? The problem with Vitality is this one. People not only think ZywOo's the best, some people at times think Vitality was the best team. We think your coaching staff's one of the best. You're getting props all across the board. So what do you think it is that's also held Vitality back? Because obviously, like, I don't think there was a single team last year who were in position to win as many tournaments as you guys did. You still won a couple. It's pretty hard to win CS tournaments. But, like, if we were in scenarios where you're in a semi or you're, like, one of the favoured teams in a low bracket or a final, like, dude, you could have won 10 tournaments last year. Like, that's real. That could have happened. You know, that's so. I mean, I'm sure you think about these things. Obviously, when you know you could win a final, it's not. You know, when if you're like I'll give you a best example. So I'll be mean, but I'll use LEGIJA for example. When they made the Cologne final that year. Listen, even if they lose the final, they can still go, fuck, what an amazing tournament. Like, wow, how's that? The difference is, if you're in every final you lose them, like when Team Liquid lost them all at Astralis, you just think, fuck, I lost another. Like, there's no cool part about that. It's terrible. So how do you resolve this? Like, what do you think, what have been the areas where Vitality has had its issues?
Well, at that moment, I think what we lacked was more staff persons. We had almost only ErikHillestad in the team, and he was the only one working, and he had too many things to do in that sense. We didn't have the right people, I would say. We had Weeper, the analyst, but it didn't go well. Our manager, the Olympic medalist Mathieu, had also were young in the ecosystem, the system. Sorry. Right. So obviously it was pretty hard. I mean, we needed at the moment be more a mental coach. We are, some of us, like Alex, had some medical problems. So all these things together maybe would help us to win the final we lost. For example, Cologne or Malmo, those big finals that we lost, and maybe having. With Alex, for example, I prefer the team with NBK than Shocks. And what would have helped us to win is maybe NBK being more agree with the coach in every sense, like giving him 100% trust. And I think if he would have done that, maybe we would have won even more, because we had a good chemistry in the game without like maybe much works. Because the good thing with NBK is that he can do all the roles. He's a support player, he's entry fragger, he's lurking, sure. Can do everything. And it helps a lot in a team having a player like that. And for me, for example, it was really easier for me to be a better player and to be even better as individual having NBK, because I knew sometimes I could lurk and him on the other side of the map being the entry. And that's what maybe we lacked with Alex and Shocks at the same time. So yeah, maybe if I could do the world differently, I would have done that.
What do you think, LEGIJA?
It's interesting. I don't, to be honest, I don't know. Like, obviously, you don't know. But I was thinking like that it's maybe because they're switching also players a lot. And when did you start picking up Nivera in this 6-man thing? October.
Me
okay,
October.
I guess that's not really that much.
Also,
I think you guys changed.
Sorry. Okay, so when I don't know why I was still thinking I was in 2020, so I answered for 2019 and not for 2020. Yeah, I meant 2020.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, it's late. So I will talk about that. Sorry.
Yeah.
You can delete the other part. Okay, so for 2020. Okay, so actually we lost 4 finals. That we could have won, maybe. And what I would have done differently is I felt like in some finals, maybe the 2 first, I needed maybe more experience as in-game leader, because I was doing more mistakes in some sense. I felt like in a tactical way. Also, having Mizuta more prepared faster would have helped us to win tournaments.
Sure.
Maybe having Nivera before. Nivera kind of helped me on that sense. Having him maybe before would have helped us, because without him in the roster, we didn't win. We were losing 4 finals, but we were not winning. What we could have done better?
I just don't think you guys didn't even show up even all your potential right now. Like, I think you're still on the coming. Like, I think you will be you have the potential to even become a way better team than you are. And I think like a team like Astralis, they've reached their potential. Obviously, they will always grow and go. Like, if a team comes better, they will just take another step and come somehow above you. But I think you guys are slowly taking the curve, and once you will be at the point, and then I think you guys will be the next team, I would say. Like, just from watching your games, like also when we started playing with MB again, or when I started playing with MB again, I watched a lot of your guys' games just because I had a good feeling about your play style and how you approach the game. And I think once your guys' system is actually fully done, I think you guys will be on a different level. I think you guys can make actually the new era be a new era. I think you can beat Astralis. And once you start winning against this team a couple of times, they will also get in your head, or you guys will get in their heads, and it's going to be a different story.
Hopefully. The only thing I can say is the funny part is that we felt terrible the last tournament, the global finals, but the 2 games we lost, we were really close to win both. Like we were 13-7 lead against Astralis and 15-9 against Navi. So obviously we were disappointed, but when you know that you feel that you were like at way too far from your 100% at that moment, basically it's kind of good. I see positive things even when you lose, because it's really important to. If you do a 3rd place, it's not really bad. It's not really good, because we want this championship mentality. But yeah, I would say that we have still a lot of things to work on. Mainly me as in game leader, maybe most likely on my attitude, on my emotions, and etc. I'm trying to work on that every day. It's not easy when you're really emotional like me, but I know that it's the biggest step for me to become even better, and the team to get even better. So I think we all know what we have to work on, and we will give our 100% from tomorrow morning, because we're starting practicing again.
The funny thing is, like, even before Astralis came back to the original lineup and was doing the 6-man rotation and became really good and won the tournaments at the end of the year, they were basically always Vitality's kryptonite. Like, even when they were actually kind of in like okay form, they always used to beat you guys pretty much every single time that you played them. So obviously that's tough, right? That you now have to play them all the time in the final, the lower bracket final. Like, basically you have to beat this team if you want to win all the tournaments, probably. Like, it's funny because even though Na'Vi can beat them sometimes, like, sometimes I feel like Na'Vi would do you a favour if they beat them at this point, mate, because for some reason that specific team you've just had the problems with. What do you think it is? Because against every other team, I know people are going to say, but they lost the finals. Like, each of those finals was like a story in itself, and as apEX says, a lot of it was like, you know, inexperience. You haven't won championships yet with this lineup. But Astralis particularly, there seems to be something about their style that isn't working for you guys. So what's making them tough to play? Because they're not exactly the same Astralis as the old days, right? These things have changed.
Yeah. Well, for a long time it was true until I think the DreamHack Open Fall, the RMR tournament, when we beat them in the semi-final. That was the first time since Cologne 2019 that we beat them. Then we beat them again in the Blast final, and then we lost twice to them pretty closely. But yeah, I think this mentality thing is over against them, because we knew that we could beat them twice, and mainly in the Blast final, at the end of the year, when we played pretty good and we deserved this final much. I mean, in the better way than them. But we've lost twice against them. Once at the big this year, and one at the end of the year. It was pretty close. I mean, we're not able to beat them on those two. It's always 16-14 overtime way, and it's pretty sad. But yeah, I don't think it's about the style, etc. It's just like at the beginning, obviously it was the Kryptonites. I mean, we were scared to play against them, etc. I remember the first time we beat them, we lost the first map 16-4, I think, on Nuke, and we started Cityside. And I remember my coach telling us, like, stop being small dicks, guys. Yeah, you have small dicks right now. You have all small dicks. You're scared to lose against other players. Come on. And everyone woke up, and we finally beat them. And I think it was more mental, because obviously for almost for every team, it's also in any way it's hard to beat Astralis. It's really hard to beat them because they're punishing your mistakes more than any other teams with the team play. So when you play them, obviously you need to play at your 100% and doing less mistakes than them. And yeah, in the last 2 games, at least we didn't do that. Obviously, in the last in the last year, we prefer to play Navi. We had a better chance to win against Navi than Astralis. Maybe with the style, I don't know exactly why, but at least we've been this Astralis a few times, and now we know what we're capable of. And the fun part with Astralis is that when you watch them, when you rewatch the game, when you play against them, sometimes you don't feel they're like super good, but you still lose, and it's really boring to do that. And because you know that if you didn't do those small mistakes that cost you the game, 1-on-3 that you played bad or etc., you could have win the game. And it's always been like that with Astralis, except maybe 2018 when they've been like way above everyone. But the rest, they were winning on the close range, and you felt like they were something. And that's what maybe a lot of teams is thinking when they play against them in that sense.
Yeah, makes sense. I think we'll just leave it there. I think that was pretty good. Got a couple of hours out. Yeah, we'll just pop around. This video was kindly supported by Laggy15, Pronogo, Andrew, Dean Tanglis, Animosity, ErikHillestad, Andreas Kroknes, Hades, Jensen Goh, Zoomba, JDubs, Tobias Bernasconi, Alexander Rao, and as always, a special thanks goes out to Jerky's Minion. Would you like to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Want to ask a question in one of my monthly video AMAs? Do you want teasers? See who's going to be on my next interviews and shows? Maybe you want to take part in a discussion with me where we go anywhere. We had a mad one talk about chess the other month. If so, put your money where your mouth is and join the Skrilluminati today at the link in the description box below.